Today, we're diving into the story of one of history's most famous figures, Julius Caesar. He was a general, a politician, and the man who brought an entire republic to its knees.
Imagine a system of government that lasts for 500 years. That was the Roman Republic. For them, it was everything, a way of life built on the idea of never having a king. So how on earth did one man's ambition manage to tear it all down? That's the big question we're going to tackle. Let's get into it. All right, so let's start at the beginning. A Roman on the rise. Now, Caesar came from a noble family, sure, but they weren't exactly the A-listers of Rome. Think of him growing up in a bustling, kind of chaotic part of the city. His life was about to take a sharp turn, and fast. Get this, when his father dies suddenly, Caesar is just 16 years old, and boom, he's now the head of the family. Can you imagine that kind of responsibility at 16? It meant he had to grow up like yesterday, and it lit a fire under him, making him incredibly ambitious right from the start.
So Rome at this time was a pretty dangerous place politically. A powerful dictator named Sulla comes to power. And Caesar's family had supported Sulla's enemies. That's bad news. Sulla basically looks at this ambitious young Caesar and sees a threat. So Caesar is forced to get out of town, hiding out by joining the army. It was literally a matter of survival.
Okay, this next story is just wild. While he's traveling, Caesar gets kidnapped by pirates. But here's the thing. Instead of being scared, he acts like he's in charge of them. He's hanging out, reading them his own poetry, and when they tell him how much his ransom is, he just laughs. He tells them they're not asking for nearly enough money because he's worth way more. I mean, talk about confidence.
So, the ransom gets paid, he's free. Does he go home and breathe a sigh of relief? Nope. The first thing he does is pull together a bunch of ships, hunts those pirates down, and captures every last one of them, just like he told them he would. This story went viral, Roman style. It sent a clear message: Caesar keeps his promises, and you do not want to get on his bad side.
All right, next up, alliances and ambition, teaming up to take over. So Caesar's back in Rome, and he's smart. He knows you can't get anywhere in Roman politics by yourself. To climb the ladder and have any real say in the Senate, which we can think of as their parliament, he needed two things: a lot of money and some very powerful friends.
And this leads him to create something called the First Triumvirate. I know, it sounds like a big fancy term, but don't worry. It was really just an unofficial secret alliance. Basically, three of the biggest power players in Rome decided to join forces so they could pull all the strings and run the whole show.
So let's meet the team, shall we? First up, you've got Pompey. He's the general, the military superstar with the armies at his back. Then there's Crassus, the money. He's one of the richest dudes in Roman history, so he's funding the whole operation. And finally, you have Caesar, the populist. He's the smooth-talking politician who knows how to win over the crowds. You put these three together? Yeah, they were pretty much unstoppable.
So this dream team works. And that brings us to our next chapter: conquering Gaul and winning armies. Caesar uses his new influence to get himself appointed governor of Gaul. For him, this was the ultimate prize. It was his chance to get command of his very own army and go after the two things he wanted more than anything: fame and, of course, a whole lot of power.
And let me tell you, he did not mess around. He spent the next 9 years, that's right, 9 years, fighting in what were called the Gallic Wars. We're talking about an area that's basically modern-day France and Belgium. He didn't just fight, he conquered, massively expanding Rome's borders and its influence.
So what was his secret? How did he get his soldiers to be so loyal? Well, for one, Caesar wasn't one of those generals who sits back in a comfy tent. No, he was right there in the mud with his men, eating what they ate, sleeping where they slept. On top of that, he was a brilliant strategist who won battle after battle, and he made sure his troops got a big share of the loot. This created an incredible bond. And here's the crucial part: his army's loyalty wasn't to Rome or the Senate, it was to Caesar, and Caesar alone.
Meanwhile, back in Rome, things are falling apart. His powerful partners are out of the picture, and his so-called allies in the Senate are getting really nervous. Caesar's success in Gaul has made him too powerful, too popular, and all this tension is about to explode in one of the most famous moments in all of history: crossing the Rubicon.
The Senate, now led by his old partner-turned-rival Pompey, sends him a message. It's an order, really. They tell him, come home, but leave your army behind. What they were really saying was, give up your power, give up your protection, and put yourself at our mercy.
Caesar saw right through it. This wasn't just a political maneuver. It was a trap. He knew that if he walked back into Rome all by himself, he'd be arrested, exiled, or maybe even killed. So there he is, standing on the bank of a small river called the Rubicon. It's the legal boundary of his territory. To cross it with his army is forbidden.
And he makes a decision that will change the world forever. He says the famous words, "The die is cast," and leads his legions across the river. Let's be clear. In the eyes of Roman law, this was an act of rebellion. It was treason. It was a declaration of civil war. He had just passed the point of no return.
Okay, so now we're at dictator for life. One man in absolute control. After he crossed the Rubicon, a massive civil war erupted. Caesar chases Pompey all over the Mediterranean, and in the end, Caesar wins. He crushes all his opposition and marches back into Rome, not just as a victorious general, but as the most powerful man in the world. He's the undisputed boss. And you know what? Once he has all this power, he actually starts getting stuff done. He wasn't just about conquest. He had a vision for Rome. He started a whole bunch of reforms, giving land to his soldiers, extending Roman citizenship to more people, kicking off massive construction projects. He was really trying to get Rome's house in order.
And here's a wild fact. One of his changes is something you use every single day. He introduced the Julian calendar, a year with 365 days and an extra day every 4 years for a leap year. Sound familiar? It should. Our modern calendar is basically just a slightly tweaked version of the one Caesar created over 2,000 years ago.
But with all this power, his style started to change. He began to look and act, well, a lot like a king, which was a huge no-no in Rome. We're talking a golden throne, royal purple robes. He even put his own face on Roman coins, which was unheard of for a living Roman. So when he got the Senate to declare him dictator for life, a lot of people started to think, wait a minute, is the Republic even a republic anymore?
And that fear is what leads us to the final tragic chapter, the Ides of March. A conspiracy was brewing. A group of senators got together and decided there was only one way to stop Caesar from becoming a king and save their beloved republic. They had to kill him.
So on March 15th, a day that would become infamous as the Ides of March, Caesar heads to the Senate. His wife had begged him not to go. She had nightmares, there were bad omens, but he went anyway. And once he was there, the conspirators closed in, surrounding him. They attacked him with daggers. And in a final, stunning twist of fate, he collapsed and died, right at the base of a statue of, you guessed it, his old enemy, Pompey.
So, did the plan work? Did they save the Republic? Absolutely not. In fact, it backfired spectacularly. Killing Caesar didn't fix anything. It just kicked off another round of brutal civil wars that lasted for over a decade. And when it was all over, the republic they had killed him to save was gone for good. In its place rose the Roman Empire, led by Caesar's adopted son.
Which brings us all the way back to that first question we asked. Was he a hero or a tyrant? The guy who saved Rome from chaos, or the ambitious man who destroyed its 500-year-old system of government? The real answer is, well, it's complicated. He was probably a bit of both. And that's exactly why we're still talking about Julius Caesar thousands of years later.